possibly happen?
Mary, it's Frodo Baggins.
Hello, Frodo. You've been in the Farmer Maggot's crop.
All right. I know we call this mushroom thieves, but it just makes more sense. When you say cabbage thieves or cabbage and carrot thieves, it just doesn't sound as good. Plus, this is kind of a throwback to it's what Frodo did, in fact, in
Exactly.
The Lord of the Rings, in the Fellowship of the Ring. We learn out what Frodo did as a rascally young youth, to be redundant. But yeah, so they're really, I mean, if we look here, we see cabbages and carrots, and then they tumble down the cliffside, and they've got, it's a shortcut to mushrooms. We see some carrots there on the left. Sam is holding some cabbages. So we found out earlier that they're pranksters, but now they're not only pranksters, they're straight up criminals. They're the worst part of the Shire. They're out stealing poor farmer maggots, hard fought for crops that they simply are stealing. I mean, I was a little bit like, whoa, they're actually just stealing food from them. So maybe they're food insecure. We can't judge them too harshly.
That's right.
But I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of this change. And it was felt like sort of it's a completely random way to get them together. They're not really friends. They're just the rascals who are like now along for the trip. We don't really know how much, how much before they literally run into each other do we see them interacting before this? Not much at all, right? Is there anything?
No. Well, Pippin,
films?
remember, is with Sam and Frodo.
Yeah, no, in the books, but I mean in the films.
No, not at all. They don't interact at all. Pippin and Merry interact. Pippin and Merry interact with Gandalf, but they don't interact with Frodo.
Isn't that weird? Like, you don't think about that. Having read the books, I don't think that they don't really know each other well, according to the films at this point.
Right.
Other than, I guess, they're at the party, so you could say, well, they have a relationship because they were at the party. But everybody was invited to the party.
Yeah, he invited them, but that doesn't mean much considering how many people. And so I thought it's worth. Did you have the quote already?
No, go ahead.
So I thought it is worth. The whole thieving from Farmer Maggot, as you pointed out, is a thing, but it is a thing that Frodo did, not Pippin and Merry. In fact, quite the opposite with Pippin. So I'm going to read a quote from Frodo. This is from A Shortcut to Mushrooms. And Frodo says about Farmer Maggot, he says, "I am terrified of him and his dogs. I have avoided his farm for years and years. He caught me several times trespassing after mushrooms when I was a youngster at Brandy Hall. And on the last occasion, he beat me and then took me and showed me to his dogs. See, lads," he says, "next time this young varmint sets foot on my land, you can eat him. Now see him off. They chased me all the way to the ferry. I have never got over the fright, though I dare say the beasts knew their business and would not really have touched me." So this is Frodo, young rascally thief when he was much younger. And Pippin says, Pippin laughs at Frodo and then says, basically, "Well, it's time you made it up, especially if you're coming back to live in Buckland. Old Maggot is really a stout fellow if you leave his mushrooms alone. Let's get into the lane, and then we shan't be trespassing. If we meet him, I'll do the talking. He is a friend of Mary's, and I used to come here with him a good deal at one time." So Mary isn't there. Pippin is, and Pippin talks about how Farmer Maggot knows him, and Mary is his friend. So quite the opposite of what the movie shows. And funnily enough, it's, also, I'm going to take this moment because this is our moment. I don't think we have it as a separate change. Do we have, because we talked about it in the 6th chapter removal, was Farmer Maggot. Man, I love Farmer Maggot. Farmer Maggot actually stands up and threatens the Black Riders when they come on his land and tells them he refuses their gold and tells them that they're going to turn around and leave. The Black Rider, he's going to turn around and leave, or he's going to get his dog sicked on him. So Farmer Maggot's, in the common parlance, Farmer Maggot is a Chad.
Yeah, so, it's fine. We're going to talk a little bit about that in our extended podcast because Thomas has a point to be made about Farmer Maggot and his fierce and intimidating demeanor that probably sent to Nazgul.
So anyway, that's so this whole thing is a reversal. Frodo was the thief, and it was many, many years ago. And the other Pippin and Merry are actually on good terms with Farmer Maggot.
Yeah, they're not thieves. They're not thieves, people. They're not thieves. All right, number 28. I think last we realized I miscounted, so I figured out. No, we're on number 28 now. Sorry about that, everybody. If you saw number 26, but this is officially number 28 here. Number 28, Merry and Pippin mushroom teams. how much? No, wait, sorry. Ooh, I got to fix this. Is it lore friendly? There we go. Getting this right. Fly by the seat of your pants. We're not going to edit this in post. This is how we roll here.
This is how we roll.
Is it lore friendly? No is my answer, because it's part of that whole, we're just going to cut it all out and make them meet by literally running into each other, and they have no relationship otherwise. And I hate that. There's a deep relationship that's built over those 6 chapters that Peter Jackson cut out. And by whittling it down, by whittling isn't the right word, by hacking it to a splinter of, we're just going to knock into each other while walking through a cornfield, you've created characters that didn't exist in Tolkien's book. So no,
right, it feels kind of like a random encounter, or it's the way that the DM in a D&D game makes all the characters meet each other, like they literally just bump into each other.
Yeah.
Hey, we're on the same adventure now.
Yeah, no, I hate. Oh, it's a serendipitous thing that we just jumped right.
Accidentally bumping into each other. Yep.
Deus Ex Machina right there, man. Can't do that. Okay.
It's not lore friendly. I don't find it to be the most egregious of things, but I do not like.
Yeah. We'll find out how egregious you think it is. So does it make for better cinema? I'll let you go first on this one.
What was the other option? The other option was to have a conversation which was similar to the book, and in which Farmer Maggot is not. They're not thieves stealing from Farmer Maggot. They just mentioned Farmer Maggot in this land that they happen to be walking through. So does it make for better cinema? I don't see that. They're not cutting out a character. I mean, they're cutting out Farmer Maggot, but that's a different change. That's not technically this one. Yeah. So they're just changing the character of Merry and Pippin to be thieves, and I don't see that as better cinema. They didn't need to.
No, they didn't. It's I mean, this has been happening now a few times when we talk about Merry and Pippin, is that they're the, we talked about Gimli being the comic relief and Merry and Pippin being the comic relief, and this is now an attempt to do that in a sense too. That, look, they're the guys who, they pranked everybody, they stole the fireworks and set them off. No, look, these are the guys that are stealing the crops from Farmer Maggot, and it just creates characters that I didn't recognize in the films, and I think the characters in the books are better than the characters in the films, and you could have still given comic relief without making them into these characters that are stealing crops from people. I know a lot of people are going to be like, I can't believe you're worrying about them stealing the crops. I'm like, hey man, he worked for those. You know how many hills he had to plow in those rolling hills of the Shire in order to get all those cabbages without the water pooling underneath them and rotting it? It's hard work to get those little ridges up high to get the cabbage to. Okay, so they're not.
Whereas instead we get the invisible Farmer Maggot. We see the sign of him coming through the fields as they get chased off.
The bouncing scythe, which is the first time I saw it, I'm like,
scythe.
Somebody's standing there going like this.
So basically, he's the Hobbit equivalent of, like, get off my lawn.
Yeah, that's right. Which Frodo's in the book didn't want to go back on his lawn after the dogs.
Right, but it was a joke.
It was the dogs.
But it was a joke, and he does actually go on, and they have a great relationship and a conversation with Farmer Maggot in the books. And so, anyway, missed out.
Yeah. Okay. So, how much do we like to change?
You first.
This goes back to the whole, they cut out way too much of those 6 chapters, and I hate that the world building was gone from those 6 chapters. And a part of that is what they've made Merry and Pippin into. Instead of being his companions, they're his accidental, I don't even want to call them friends. They're the accidental hanger-ons. They're kind of trailing them. They're like, oh, bad guy, Nazgul, let's all go to Buckleberry Ferry, and now we're in it. And it happens in the span of a few hours. They meet them, they fall down the cliff. Here comes the Nazgul. They start running. They get to Buckleberry Ferry at night, and then they're in Bree, like that. Within the span of a few hours. And in the books, it's a span of a few months. It's time. There's a lot of time that goes on from leaving Hobbiton to actually getting to Bree. And I think by doing this, they've really lessened it. It's going to be relatively low for me, not the worst. I'm going to go 1.8. 1.8. I don't like the change.
Ooh, that's hard. All right, so I'm not that harsh. I'm below. The middling is mark is a 3, so I'm below a 3. I'll be at, but I'm more like a 2.4. It doesn't bother me quite as much, but I just think it's unnecessary, and it's sort of demeaning to Merry and Pippin. It's just it doesn't. represent their character very well. So
You know what I realized? I was looking at this here as I was prepping for these changes today. I realized that the ones that really bother me are the ones where they change Tolkien's world, even more so sometimes in the plot. They change the characters in the world. And so when here you miss out on so much of the world by these changes and the characters, like it's a double whammy here. They change the characters and they've minimized Middle Earth. And I hate that, because by doing it this way, they've removed who those characters are that we love from the books.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's characters that you love, and so yeah.